And she said, yeah, you have long haul COVID and your thyroid's not the issue. So we're going to discontinue thyroid medication completely. And I immediately burst into tears because I thought, this is the only thing making me feel better. It was definitely Jesus. And he's always been faithful to me to get me through really hard things. His steadfastness reminded me that I was not alone. It's just a genetic mutation which causes you to not be able to detox certain things. And so that kind of set me up for a life of looking at the root of the issue rather than jumping to a Band-Aid to fix it.
You can be doing everything right. So eating well, staying active, caring for your family, maybe even delivering other people's babies, and still find yourself completely taken out by long COVID. For years, my guest today was the one showing up for others during their most intense and challenging and sacred moments in their life. And then long COVID hit, and suddenly she had to figure out a way to show up for herself. If you're new here, I'm Raelan Agle, and this is where we dive into real recovery stories from ME/CFS, long COVID, and similar conditions. No fluff, no gatekeeping, just honest conversations about what actually helps. Today, I'm excited to be talking with Aly John, who's joining us from Fort Worth, Texas. Aly is a childbirth educator, a mom of 3, someone who's used to being the strong one in the room. But when long COVID came crashing in, all that strength was put to the test. She's here to share how she made it through her darkest days and what's actually been helpful and how her faith has grounded her through it all. Let's see how Aly has worked her way past this. Let's dive in. Aly, wonderful to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you.
All right. So the $1 million question, take us back. How did this all start for you?
It started quite a long time ago because I was diagnosed with autoimmunity, type 1 diabetes at the age of 4 after a vaccine injury. So lots of changes happened at 4 years old, that big life changes at that age, and don't have a family history of type 1, nothing like that. Found out later in life I do have the genetic mutation of MTHFR, which people don't know what that is. It's just a genetic mutation which causes you to not be able to detox certain things like heavy metals, synthetic vitamins, things like that, which can overload your body and cause a lot of disorder in your body, especially if you already also have autoimmunity. They kind of go hand in hand. Though that diagnosis actually helped me be really in tune with my body from a young age, because I was diagnosed in 1991 and there weren't such a thing as CMs or continuous glucose monitors. And so I had to be able to tell when I was getting low. So I could say, Mom, Dad, can you help me? I need to check my blood sugar, and then treat my blood sugars and move on. My parents were really great because they were very balanced and conservative with how they treated things. So I obviously have to take insulin, which is a pharmaceutical, but everything else we try to treat naturally first. And so that kind of set me up for a life of looking at the root of the issue rather than jumping to a Band-Aid to fix it. And so having that upbringing, I can see the benefit of having to have this diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, because it set me up for success in the issues that happened later in life with long haul COVID. So just a lot of my personality and my nature is to get to the root of the issue and find the answer to address that issue. So whether that's a mineral or vitamin deficiency, or I'm not eating enough, or not eating enough of the right things like that, really getting to the root of why my body is not functioning properly. And so that's just been my thing. I love to get to the root. I love to help heal my own body with things that it needs rather than just treating symptoms.
What an incredible mindset. I'm sorry that you had to go through that from such a young age. My heart was breaking for this little girl with her blood sugar.
It's hard, yeah.
So, nothing good about that. The silver lining being that you came into adulthood with this approach to your health that virtually none of us had. We were like, symptoms, treat the symptoms, doctor, tell me what to do. Like, I'm powerless. I don't have a role in this.
Exactly.
Get to the root of it. What are you even talking about?
I know. I see so much beauty in that, and it's a hard life, but it has helped shape me and help me address things more appropriately, I think, at a deeper level.
All right. So clear to say you were going to have to put these skills to use.
Uh-huh.
So what happened that made all of this information so valuable for you?
Sure, yeah. So the end of 2021, oh, excuse me, the end of 2022, I got what I'm fairly certain was either just a regular respiratory virus or COVID again. I had definitely had COVID in the beginning of 2021, healed within about 2 weeks, wasn't super severe. I got another virus in 2022, which I actually don't get sick very often, but when I do, it tends to be pretty rough. And so it took weeks to heal from this one. And I noticed after I recovered, after a very long cough, I had what felt like forever. I started to notice I wasn't feeling like myself. And I gained 10 pounds very quickly, which was shocking to me because my weight never really fluctuated. I never really had issues with my weight. I started having 2 periods a month, another thing that is not normal for me. I'm very like clockwork with that. Extreme fatigue, extreme body aches, extreme brain fog. And I thought, surely something's wrong. And I don't know what's going on. I was forgetting things that I would never forget. I was putting people in danger. I accidentally left a door open at work all night, not only unlocked, but wide open. And that is not, I'm very careful, I'm very meticulous. So I knew something was wrong. I went to a wonderful provider that they actually do really in depth blood work and really listen. And they said, your blood work looks fabulous. We did cancer screening, we did all of the tests. And they said, everything looks great. The only thing we can see is that your T3 hormone is a little bit on the lower end of ideal. And so started me on thyroid medication. I thought, surely it's my thyroid. Went through months not being able to get the right dose of thyroid medication. They initially put me on Armour thyroid, which is desiccated pig thyroid, which I was happy with because I thought this is more natural. This is great. It wasn't helping. So we added in Cytomel, which is a synthetic T3 only hormone. It is pretty much bioidentical to natural T3, so I was okay with that. It was helping me feel a little bit more energy, but it was causing my thyroid levels to still be wacky, even worse. And I thought, well, it's helping me feel better, so I need more. That's the issue. So I started hopping around to other providers. And before I left this original provider, she said, I'm not comfortable continuing to treat your thyroid this way because this isn't my specialty. And I really want you to find a thyroid specialist. And so I waited months. In the meantime of waiting months, I started going into a very deep, horrific depression. I've never been depressed in my life, ever. And it was the most empty, lonely. I can't describe it other than just feeling complete emptiness. And that's never how I've felt. And it was scary and hard to explain to people that all my labs are coming back normal, but I feel like I'm dying. And bless my husband and my daughters. They were so caring and empathetic and helpful. But when you're in that hole of depression, you just don't feel anything. And that was so scary to me. So depressed, suicidal ideation, feeling like calling out to the Lord, God, I want to keep living, but how do I keep living like this with no answers? And will this be forever? Is this my life now? I don't have any answers, and I hate not having answers. So I finally get in with this new provider, and she's basically like a female Dr. House. She's very, she sees things that other people don't see. And as soon as I saw her and she saw my lab work, she said, why were you on thyroid medication? And I said, well, I mean, I think they wanted to optimize my levels, but it wasn't working. And she said, yeah, you have long haul COVID and your thyroid's not the issue. So we're going to discontinue thyroid medication completely. And I immediately burst into tears because I thought, this is the only thing making me feel better. This is the only thing helping me. And do you know for sure that it's long haul COVID? Because I had heard of that and all the symptoms were right on. And I even did the frontline doctor's protocol, ivermectin, I did nattokinase and all the things. And that did help, but I was still having flare-ups really bad. And she said, we're going to take you off the thyroid medication. you're actually allergic to the desiccated pig thyroid, which apparently a lot of people are actually, if you're autoimmune already or have MTHFR, you can have a really high histamine response to the desiccated thyroid. So as soon as I got off of that, within a week, many of my symptoms started to resolve. I was able to sleep better. I woke up without pain. I had a slight increase in energy, not anything crazy, not anything that was super helpful, but I could tell my body was warm again. And so my inflammation went way down. So that was encouraging. But as I was going through all of this, I found your channel, I found Roberto Escobar's channel, and I had no idea that there were positive stories about this. I had no idea that there were actual resources that I could tap into to feel uplifted and hopeful. And so the first channel I found was Roberto's, and his idea of, it's called the sandwich approach of, the mindfulness, paying attention to breathing, connecting your mind to your body. And I never tried that because I thought, I teach that in my birth education classes. I teach that to my clients, but why would I apply that to myself? And how does that apply to long COVID? I don't get it. But then when I started to apply that to myself, praying, meditating on scripture, worship, classical music, and just breathing. How powerful is breathing? I didn't know. So doing that before exercise, before doing anything, and saying, I'm safe, I'm healed, my blood work is beautiful. This is my mind, my mind is causing a problem, and really understanding the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and that connection, and just paying attention to that, and seeing when I have a flare up, I need to tell myself I'm safe, I'm okay, my mind is having a problem right now, and my body's reacting. And then doing whatever activity I'm going to do that might normally cause a flare up, and then finishing that up with mindfulness and prayer and seeking the Lord and speaking truth over myself. And so once I found y'all's channels, I started recognizing, okay, this mind-body connection is real. Neuroplasticity is real. All those things are true and good, and I can rewire my brain. And also hearing, I can't remember whose channel it was from, but long COVID causes a traumatic brain injury. And I never thought of it that way before, but your brain is so affected by that illness and that extended illness that you will have like a PTSD response to certain triggers. And seeing that as, wow, that all makes so much sense, because it's truly a mental issue to recognize that our bodies are having a hard time connecting with our brains and recognizing that we're safe and we're okay. And so once I recognized that, I was able to be more intentional with the things I was doing to help prevent those flares.
Hey guys, a quick interruption. So just so you know, 99% of the recovery information that I share is available for free online in various formats. I send out weekly emails, I post regularly on Instagram, and I have hundreds of videos here on this channel, all packed with valuable insights. It's accessible to everyone. However, if you'd prefer to save yourself some digging, you might be interested in my online course, Brain Retraining 101 for ME/CFS and Long COVID Recovery. It delivers everything that you need to know in bite-sized pieces, so you can spend just a few minutes each day gaining tools to propel you forward on your journey. The course is self-paced, so no pressure, and includes online support spaces, including group coaching calls with myself and with other coaches. You will learn the brain science behind recovery and gain the best tools for brain retraining and nervous system regulation, all while receiving support from our incredible community. Oh my goodness, you're going to love them. They are there. They truly get it. And every week they are cheering you on. If you are ready to supercharge your recovery, you can check out the link in this video's description to join or to learn more. And I look forward to meeting you in one of our live group coaching calls. Yeah, I'm so glad you found Roberto Escobar. I've interviewed him on the channel. I love tidbits. I'm going to link for people watching his interview here. You can check it out. And for people watching, if you don't know, you can click on it and it will open in a new tab and it'll just be there waiting for when this interview is done because he is wonderful and
He's so
just has a lot
sweet.
of really good insights. Yeah. And you make such a good point about the trauma of long COVID specifically, or COVID in general. It's like you couldn't possibly, if you went out of your way to design something to put you in long term fight or flight, like this is the perfect storm of a world pandemic. We don't understand it. People are dying. We're scared to touch the mail and our keys and to
Uh-huh.
go outside and, to breathe the same air as people. And then
Uh-huh.
long COVID comes along and nobody understands that. And you don't know if you're ever going to get better. And
Yeah.
maybe it's like this thing called MECFS. Let's look that up. Oh, that's
Uh-huh.
a doom and gloom also.
Yeah. There's just no hope, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Panic and spiral and you get on this,
Uh-huh.
and then more and more symptoms are coming up, so you're getting more and more afraid and it feels like your whole body's shutting down and no one
Yeah.
has answers and you get
Yeah.
more and more isolated, and it's just my heart goes out to everyone. They're now estimating over 400 million people in the world have long COVID. It is heart-wrenching and just yeah. But
Yeah.
incredible that you were able to, because it's a difficult way. I imagine your health background, which we can talk a little bit more about, but helped prepare you a little bit for this because it's quite the
Yeah.
shift to think my brain is doing this to me. It's related to fear. Things like breath work are going to help. Like,
Uh-huh.
I think I'm dying.
Yeah.
So, like, skip your breath work talk and like, let's get to the real stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like for you switching over to this newer understanding of neuroplasticity and symptoms?
Sure. Well, I think with having my background in my faith, really tying the supernatural to the natural, and I can do that easily because of my faith. And in a way, I think that our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, sometimes there's a disconnect that we don't recognize that they're connected. Those things, and they can cause, when there's misfiring or there's injury, we we tend to forget that our minds are connected to our bodies, and we can consciously speak to our subconscious. That's how God designed our brains. I mean, he's a beautiful designer, and being made in his image and being able to know, okay, he's an intelligent designer and I have an intelligent brain. That science even backs up neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, that's a thing. Scripture even talks about that. Like I have my little note here: set your minds on things above, which is Colossians 3:2. Renewing our minds, that's in the Bible. That's God's creation. Paul talks about that. We can renew our minds. And so I had to just dive deep into that because I teach that in my childbirth education class. I teach my students about how God created us to birth our babies and to endure difficulty and to push through when it's hard and do hard things, knowing that there's something good to come of that. And so I had to apply all those things to myself and coming to the understanding of, hearing stories on your channel. This isn't forever. And I hope people are encouraged to hear you're not stuck in this forever. And there are things that you can do to absolutely help your mind heal and help your body heal. Even though it's a mind issue, it doesn't mean that your symptoms aren't real. And that's where I struggled a lot. And I struggled a lot with, okay, if I'm mindful and I pray and I trust the Lord that I'm not going to hurt tomorrow after I do a kettlebell workout, am I in denial? If I'm saying, no, I'm not going to hurt tomorrow after a good kettlebell workout, which I know is a trigger for me right now, I'm doing that sandwich approach that Roberto talks about. I'm praying before and I'm trusting the Lord and I'm saying, you designed my body to grow in strength, and I'm doing something good for my body, and then working out. And if I say, okay, I'm not going to hurt tomorrow because I'm choosing not to hurt tomorrow, I'm not going to. Is that denial or is that healing my brain? So I struggled a lot with that, but to see the fruit of that, it is absolutely true. When you can start to think, what are the things in the deep, dark places of my mind that are saying, I'm afraid, or I'm anticipating pain, or I'm anticipating, I I teach that to my students. When you anticipate pain, you're going to be in more pain. When you're fearful, your body tenses up. and you hurt. And it's just such a beautiful thing to know that we can tell ourselves, no, I'm okay. This is okay. This is just momentary discomfort. Or if I do feel sore the next day, I go, man, I had a great workout yesterday. My body's strong. And this discomfort is a result of my working my body. And maybe I'll do a little bit more breath work that day and remind myself, nope, I'm okay.
You talked about, and I'm so appreciative that you were so honest about some of those really hard, darker times
Uh-huh.
because everybody goes through them. Virtually everyone I interview talks about how there were times where they didn't want to die, but they, just couldn't go on with the suffering
Uh-huh.
and the hopelessness, so they started thinking about that. So, what got you through those times when it was that dark and it was that empty and hard?
Well, for me, it was definitely Jesus. I've always known his nearness, and he's always been faithful to me to get me through really hard things. And so when I looked back on many of the hard things that I experienced growing up and throughout life, throughout different seasons of life, his steadfastness reminded me that I was not alone. And we think about the Psalms and when we're walking through the darkness of the valley, he makes us lie down in green pastures. He doesn't suggest that we lie down. It's not like a comfy place. He says, lie down. I'm taking care of you. I will go before you, and I'm making all things good for you and for my glory. And so when you're depressed, though, you're not really focusing on those things as clearly. But because I could think on his consistency and his goodness and his mercy, and that I knew he was working all things for my good and his glory. And I had my husband is just, he's a gift. And my daughters. I'll lose it if I talk about how sweet my daughters were this whole time. 2 years of just complete, utter darkness and having to choose every day, set my eyes on truth and that this wasn't going to be forever. They were always so gracious. They're only 12, 8, and 5. And I'm telling you, for 2 years, they were so patient with me and helpful. And I homeschool. And so we're home all day. And they were so kind to me. And their support and love, my husband's support and love, and my friends that were constantly praying for me and with me, and and being with me and encouraging me to abide with the Lord and just rest in him and take it one day at a time, one moment at a time. And so when I had those thoughts of I can't live like this anymore, I don't know how to do this, Lord, that I had to cling to him. And he was so faithful to deliver me from that darkness. And he healed me of that darkness.
So when you started to piece together that mind body connection, started understanding how your thoughts impacted things, what else? I know for people watching and listening, it's challenging to envision. So what does this actually look like? So when you started getting better and you had this approach to recovery, what did you do in a day or a week? What sort of things were really helping you to minimize those symptoms and start to feel better?
It was a struggle every day to choose to be mindful and be gentle to myself and not want to rush through because I want to get better now. And I'm used to, if I find the root of something, I start to feel better pretty fast. And just realizing this is a long haul. It's not fast. There's not going to be a quick just snap of the fingers and suddenly I'm better. There's not going to be a medicine. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to taking anything pharmaceutical that I don't absolutely have to. But I was so desperate that I was like, God, tell me there's some pill I can take that will snap me out of this and help me because I will take it. I just need to not feel like this. And the Lord said, there's not. And this is going to be a long path to recovery and healing. And so I just had to trust that. But every day, waking up and saying, my body hurts right now, but God, I trust you. And then a couple of the practical things, sorry, I scratched my nose. A couple of the practical things that I did each day, especially after watching Roberta's video and then watching some of your videos too with people that you spoke to that were so helpful. So, so, so encouraging, but was getting outside every day. And so my daughters would be jumping on the trampoline and I'd say, please don't jump all over me. I'm going to just lay on the trampoline and have the sunshine on my face and lay and breathe. And when I tell you that my body felt like I was 80 years old with horrific arthritis, it took me quite a long time to even climb onto the trampoline without horrific pain. And so I would get there, I'd lay down, and I'd listen to the birds, I'd have my eyes closed, and I'd pray, and I'd speak scripture over myself, and I'd just talk to the Lord, and I'd just say, God, I need you today. I need you to do what you've promised you'd do. And then I'd get down, I'd make my food, I'd make my daughter's food. And next thing I was doing a lot of I've been doing a lot of somatic exercises. And so that intentional breathing, I'd put on some worship music, just really pay attention to the sensations I was having in my body when I would move. Super simple. It seems so silly to say, I'm going to stretch this certain way and I'm going to recognize what I'm feeling in my body. But, that parasympathetic, sympathetic, when you're laying there and being intentional and feeling your body, you're reconnecting. You're getting out of sympathetic, you're going into parasympathetic, and I feel like the vagus nerve gets really damaged with long COVID. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've kind of realized is it gets so damaged. And so that connection is just like non-existent. So it's basically trying to grow that connection back and rebuild, if you will. And so laying there, stretching, feeling like, oh, I have a lot of tension in my hips. I have a lot of tension in my shoulders. And then just breathing through that and doing some of the work where you're looking up at the corner and breathing and that resetting the vagus nerve and getting it more connected. So doing that multiple times a day. I mean, it felt crazy. I was doing that 2 or 3 times a day, just remembering I'm in my home, I'm safe, which you know that, but does your body know that? Does your subconscious mind know that? And so kind of starting from scratch, I guess, of we're going to rebuild from the foundation that was kind of cracked and broken with this virus and being intentional about working on that, working through that. So somatic work, breath work, prayer, meditating on scripture, listening to worship. Singing is actually really good too for your sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. And so singing, laughing, playing. And my girls are so sweet during the day. I might be like, okay, mommy's body is really stiff right now. I can't really do as much dancing as maybe we did yesterday, but let's do something fun together and laugh together. And being intentional about finding joy again. And because I still had joy, but joy looks different, I think, in different seasons, where when I was depressed, it was the will to live was my joy. That's where the root of that joy is. I still want to live. And then working through the breathing and movement and intentionality, saying, okay, I'm going to choose to laugh with my daughters. I'm going to choose to play with them, even though I'm really tired. I'm going to deny that cycle. You talk about rewiring our brains, and that those synapses and doing those things. If I say I need to take a nap every day, and then every day at 3:00, that was me for 2 years. I had to sleep and I could not sleep enough. There were many days the girls would just be kind of living their lives and I'd be trying to be awake and have to go take a nap. But if I deny that, okay, no, it's not nap time right now. It's stretching time. It's breathing time. It's worship time. And then the next day going, oh, wow, I don't hurt like I did the day before. And with that sandwich technique, I don't know what to call it. It sounds so funny, but getting mindfulness first, then do whatever thing you normally do that triggers you, and then mindfulness again. Doing that within a day, many of my symptoms were gone. I'm not even kidding. Like literally the next day, my body didn't hurt as much. I wasn't so tired. I didn't have brain fog. It can happen really fast. So I think just committing to being consistent is key. And when you feel discouraged and when you feel like fearful, saying, no, I'm going to keep going. And you have to choose to keep going. And you have to choose to work through if you have a trigger happen. It's okay to be disappointed, but don't live there. You have to pick up and continue forward. You have to choose to live, like I could have sat in that and just stayed sick, but I had to choose to live because I didn't want to die, but I also don't want to live in misery.
So where are you now, Aly, with all of this? What does life look like today?
Yeah, I'd say I'm 95% there. I feel more like myself than I have probably in years, which is wild because I think I was experiencing some health issues even before long COVID. But because of the intentionality of supporting my body, taking certain supplements, NAC is super helpful. Taking NAC, being mindful about my vitamin D levels, all of those things, I've had to be so much more consistent and intentional with my health and supporting my body through even working through this mental stuff that I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been on paper. And then working through, I gained so much weight because I couldn't exercise. I was so exhausted. I wasn't eating enough. So my body was just in survival mode. So working now through exercise has been a great opportunity. Like I said, with the kettlebell workouts, that's a trigger for me. And that's probably the last trigger I have, to be honest. And so I'm actually excited about working through that because I get to see the fruit of that literally the next day. So if I do a kettlebell workout and then I say, that was great, I'm going to be fine tomorrow, and breathe and do that intentional work, it sounds so like unbelievable. But when you believe it and you do it, it works. It sounds so crazy. I know that I had really horrific joint pain about a month ago, and it felt like a really bad flare. So a few weeks ago, I was experiencing pretty bad hip pain, stiffness, moving really slow again. And I was kind of like, okay, I trust you, Lord. I don't know what this is. And at church on that Sunday morning, I was praying, and I just felt, well, not everybody believes in the Lord, so I understand this might feel crazy, but I really felt the Spirit come over me, and I felt such a comfort and peace. And immediately, my hip pain was gone, and I thought, okay, but I'm going to test this out because maybe it's just better because I'm standing a certain way. So I sat through service, immediately was able to stand up without stiffness, and walked around church getting my girls from their classrooms like a normal person without pain. So that happened Sunday. I woke up Monday morning thinking it might come back, but I still appreciate that happened because that tells me that this isn't all on me, that God is good and he is also my healer. And he leads me to knowledge to be able to help heal myself, but he also is a miraculous healer. And so that happened. And then Monday morning, I had this chronic knee injury that would not heal. Like it would not heal for 6 months. And it was so stiff and sharp, and I couldn't bend all the way. That was completely gone when I woke up in the morning. Entirely gone, and it has not come back. My hip pain has not come back. All of my depression is completely gone. All of my brain fog is completely gone. And when I say I'm 95%, Raelan, I mean like I still have weight to lose and I still have flares, but I'm so much more clear-minded that I can address those things with joy. And so I know I'm almost there, but all of those horrific symptoms are gone. And I know that I had to rely on the Lord that whole 2 years to be my strength and to lead me to what he wanted me to be doing and be consistent in, like keeping up with certain minerals and vitamins and getting movement and breathing and doing all those things. But ultimately, he is my healer and he gets the glory for that. And so that last little bit of healing, the Lord said, I'm going to do it. And he did it. And so I'm so excited for that. And I know that not everybody believes in the Lord, and people do heal even if they're not Christians. And that's common grace. I mean, I believe that that's common grace that comes from the Lord. And Everyone can heal from this. It takes intentionality, consistency, mindfulness, all of those things. And there is hope. And when you're in the depths of sorrow, it's not forever. And so please don't make permanent decisions about temporary situations. Please don't do that because this is not forever. You will heal.
Aly, I just want to reach through the screen and give you the biggest hug.
I want to hug you.
What you've been through, but I really appreciate the humility and the honesty and the vulnerability that you've told your story with. I've had goosebumps for 90% of the time talking. I just so moving, so impactful. I have no doubt the people watching and listening are feeling the same and just are sending you big hugs. Let's send some hugs in the comments for what you've been through, and also just for being here and bravely sharing it with people and
Thank you.
explaining what it's like navigating this through faith. I know there's a lot of people that will appreciate that perspective. So thank you for being here, Aly.
Thank you so much.
So grateful for you sharing your story. And for people watching, I know I get a lot of messages from people saying that they really do appreciate hearing from people who have made healing progress but aren't fully there yet, because there's something very relatable about someone who's still a bit on their journey as opposed to like, I'm running ultra marathons.
No, thank you. Yeah.
It's not so relatable, right? So
Mhm.
I do actually I put together a playlist for people that is just partial to fully recovered stories. So I'll link that up. So if you're watching and you're like, yes, I like this approach, there are a ton of them on the channel. Also very inspiring and insightful. Thank you again, Aly. Wonderful having you here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you to everyone watching, and hope to see you in one of these next interviews that I've linked up in the playlist.